everyone. Welcome to this Monday night in September, going into October soon. I think this is our last show this month. We're coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Facebook, we're on Roku, we are on Rumble, and we are on YouTube. We'd like to take a minute during this last show of our month to remind you that Carnation is our network sponsor. We love them very much. Thanksgiving's coming and Halloween, making homemade stuff. Oh my goodness, go for it. This is the best. Okay, our favorite guest is on tonight. He's your favorite guest too. And I'm just going to turn it over to Preston. Go.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you, Carnation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on episode 127 of The Light Gate. Super excited about our guest. He's probably been on here more than anybody else, Michael Schratt. We absolutely love him. He's got some amazing information to share. So yeah, thanks for joining us. I, of course, am Preston Dennett, your host. My lovely co-host is Dolly Saffron. We're super excited. Going to keep our introductions real short because we never have enough time with Michael. But I do like to say hi to all you folks because, as I say every week, it's because of you we do this show. It's because of you Monday is that much more fun and brighter. So who do we have here today? We've got quite a few people. Looks like Teresa Lavigne is first in line. And, of course, we can always count on you, Pete. See you.
Yeah.
And Scarlet Fire. Yes, we're going to be talking about APRO. And I am so excited.
Very astute, yes.
We got Catmaster Trash.
Hello.
Oh, wait. Fire. Public service announcement. Those that you love, now is the time to tell them, I love you all. Aww.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
I love you all.
Love you too, everybody. Yeah.
Reese Basilla, Kaleidoscope Eyes, Candy the Brave, Janie Mashburn. Excited to be here. I haven't gotten your book out that you won yet, so I'll get that as soon as I can get to the post office. We're kind of out here in the country. But
finding the post office when you do it. Yeah, we're gonna get it. I'll work on it tomorrow. We're gonna be that way tomorrow, so we'll put it out. How's that?
We have Bob Thorson. Thank you, Bob, with a wonderfully generous donation. We truly appreciate it. You guys who donate really help us to do this show. So thank you so much. We have Louise, we have Robin, we have Namaste. Thank you, Namaste. We love you very much. Can't say it enough how much we appreciate how much you give, and just it's absolutely wonderful. Thank you. We have the Owl Man. We have Patsy Foister. We have Michael Kennedy, another one of our wonderful regulars. We love you very much, Michael.
Tell Kylie we love her.
Candy the Brave and Jay Kirshenman. And I'm going to go real fast because I do want to get started. Janie, so
thank you, Janie. Thank you, sweetie.
And Becky. Wow.
Hi, Becky. Thank you. Thank you.
You too, Sunny. I am just so
Sunny, thank you.
By your guys. Just much gratitude to all of you. Thank you all so much. Oh, we have the lovely Polly.
Polly. Yeah, love you, girl.
A recent guest on our show. We're going to bring her back. She's amazing.
Remember where Polly is. She is in Jerusalem. And I want y'all to say prayers for her every day, her family, and everybody there. We love you.
We have Olivia, Feeding 5.
Yes.
Great guest tonight. We have Star Orchid. Wow, you guys.
Thank you.
Star Orchid. And I'm pretty much out of time, so I'm going to go real fast here. Energy Shifter, Kalar Brady, Flea Market Gold. We have Robin. Thank you, Neil, for joining us. He's eager. Hey, baby, it's me from Scotland.
Oh, I like that. That's cute.
Chloe McElvray. Thank you, Dolly.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
We have Lonnie. And let's see, who else do we have here? I think I got most of you guys caught up. Yay. All right. Well, let's get to our guest, shall we? I absolutely adore Michael. He is by far our most popular guest. The numbers are always really good when you're on Michael, just saying. So for those of you who don't know about Michael, do check out previous episodes. This one's going to be a good one. I'll just give you a quick rundown of his bio. Michael is a aerospace historian, a private pilot, military aerospace historian, longtime UFO researcher, lecturer, draftsman, and an expert on classified black projects, UFO crash retrievals, the UFO coverup, and more. He's the author of The Dark Files, a pictorial history of lost, forgotten, and obscure UFO encounters, and of course a frequent guest on radio shows and podcasts like Coast to Coast and many others. Regularly speaks at UFO conferences, including of course the big one, Contact in the Desert. Check out his book Dark Files. 61 fully illustrated UFO encounters from around the world, cases obtained from real-world boots-on-the-ground research. By gaining access to university archives, multiple UFO research centers, and private collections. And all cases are referenced so the reader can verify them on their own. But tonight, we have a very special treat because Michael has been boots on the ground, looking at some more archives, and he will be presenting new cases that he discovered while researching the very voluminous archives of APRO, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, which was headed by Jim and Coral Lorenzen. APRO is really the first UFO citizens group of any influence. They're absolute heroes in this field. We would not be where we are today without them. So this is going to be a real treat. I am super excited. Let me just bring Michael on. Yay.
Hi, Michael.
Good to be with you. Good to be with you.
Awesome.
It's an honor, an absolute honor. I think this is your, I have to count, 8th time, maybe 9th. So always have something new. That's the kind of, just amazing research you do. Always new.
That's good.
I think one of my favorite episodes with you was The Price is Wrong or something.
The Price is Wrong. Yeah.
That was fun. That was absolutely
That was
fun.
a dream
People
I
still
had
talk
for
about
many years. A dream I had for many years, and I'm glad we're able to do it.
So this one, I'm excited. We're going to be talking about APRO. So tell us, how did you manage to get into, where are these archives and what did you find?
Well, I suppose it's a long story. So APRO is the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization, was the first UFO organization basically in the United States, started operations 1952. They ceased operations in the late 1980s, and from the late 1980s up until 2023, these files have been inaccessible to anyone, really. They've been locked away. They've been hidden away. Recently, the National UFO Historical Record Center in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, acquired the, I would suppose, 14 file cabinets full of documents. So we're talking about historical cases, we're talking about sighting reports, sketches, flight path reports, newspaper clippings, artwork, some of the best unpublished reports in ufology, period. Now, a lot of these things were published in the APRO Bulletin, but a significant majority of these cases never even made it on the radar screen. They've never seen the light of day. Those are the cases I really love. Those are the cases I like to focus in on.
Wow. I am beyond excited because, they're my heroes, like I said. They were really the first to accept humanoid reports. What's that guy? The Air Force Major Donald Kehoe wouldn't touch the humanoid reports. He's a hero, too. He really worked hard against the UFO cover-up. But APRO and him kind of butted heads a little bit. We found out when we interviewed Lindy Powell, who's going to be on an upcoming show, pre-record. So I'm super interested to see these reports, Michael. Here, so you've got a PowerPoint put together?
I got a PowerPoint. Shall we begin then?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start. So we want to highlight the National UFO Historical Record Center in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. I have to give credit where credit is due. This organization now they're top gun now. They are top gun now. They have the largest collection of files, newspaper clippings, sighting reports, DVDs, VHS tapes, cassette tapes, reel-to-reel tapes, just a tremendous amount of information. And they're really the largest section of UFO material in the United States. This is just a cross section of the things they have. The QFOS files are there now, NICAP, APRO. I mentioned audio tapes, videotapes, cassette tapes, film reels, UFO collections from all around the world, historical UFO artifacts, UFO-related artwork. And this is something that is continuing on a weekly basis. There might be 10 boxes coming in. Another week, 40 boxes might coming in from all around the world.
Do they have room for all this?
Wow, I'm impressed.
It just keeps getting larger and growing larger.
How big is this building, and where are they going to put all this?
We're going to show you. Yeah, we got you covered. We got you covered.
Okay.
So we'll continue on here. So what does real world boots on the ground research entail? Okay. It means going through every file cabinet, every drawer, every manila folder, and every page to dig out historical UFO sighting reports that have been lost to history and never seen by the general public. That's what real world boots on the ground research means. It doesn't mean sitting on your couch or sitting on a chair and going through websites and looking at different things that you might find on the internet. No, this is things that have never been published. They've never been seen for 40, 50 years. This is real world boots on the ground. That's what we're talking about here. Real, actual research here. So when you pull up to the center, you'll see that it is part of the Rio Rancho school system. The mayor of Rio Rancho was at the ribbon cutting. So this is completely authorized. This is an actual college, university level research archive.
That's
center.
impressive.
It's all about. It is certified by the school system of Rio Rancho. Here is the secondary building where they have the audio-visual files. They have overflow files. A lot of artwork is stored here. But let me go ahead and take you over to this building. As you can see, it's a secure facility.
Cool. And
they have double locks. They have a entryway gate that is only badge entry. So, you know, these files are safe at this location. I mean, this is very valuable stuff. This is absolutely historical, valuable information here that needs to be protected. So when you walk in, this is what you see here. Now I'm going to count these in the back. What you see here on this photo in the back are the two original APRO maps. And I'll just count them by hand here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's 13 file cabinets right there. And, you know, I literally went through every single folder in every single file cabinet and opened up every single case. That's the only way you're going to get through the material to preserve an important part of our national history. Now, off to the left, there's
how many hours did that take you?
27 visits total.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot there.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
there's got to be some geek that goes down into the trenches to preserve this history. I mean, someone's got to do it, right? Someone has to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue on here. These are the other files. There's NICAP files in here. Additional files, QFOS files are a part of this collection. This would be a typical day of scanning, getting things set up. You can see my laptop is to the left, my high capacity document scanner. So I would literally go over, get a case. You know, the way this is set up, you're only allowed one file out per time. There's a laminated folder section where you put your lamination. This tells you where you are. It's like a bookmarker. And then you scan the document, put it back in there, move to the next one, you know, and this is what a Saturday morning would be like. It's a very intensive 6-hour scanning session. And I love to do it. I love to do it. So this is what the whole process looks like here. Additional files here. This is in the back room. This is in the back of the library. And that you can see this is literally a university level historical archives. This isn't, you know, this isn't playing games. This is a real place here. And it is open to the public. It's by appointment only. You can't just show up. You have to set up an appointment. So it is available to the general public. Here's the library collection. And of course, there's a lot more than this, but this just gives you a brief cross section of what you will see when you get there. This is another shot here. So APRO archives, 1952 to late 1988. And so from 1988 to 2023, it's been off the grid. No one's been able to look at this. And I'm talking about nobody has. These files were basically unavailable for so long. And as you mentioned, Preston, we want to give credit to Jim and Coral Lorenzen for starting the organization. We wouldn't be where we are today without them. Someone's got to be the originator to this. There has to be someone with that spark of interest and the inspiration to start cataloging these cases. We have to start somewhere. So definitely want to give credit to these people right here. This is another photo here. Gives you an idea of what their early office looked like so many decades ago now. So why don't we go ahead and begin here? And I want to start with this slide. Did the ancient Egyptians report sightings of UFOs? That's what we want to talk about here. Well, proving that turned out to be a little more difficult. It's not so easy. Everything we're going to be talking about here absolutely has some reference, some paperwork, some documentation, some breadcrumbs to follow. I'm not going to just leave you stranded. I'm going to give you references where you can verify this. So, of course, I had to do a little bit of digging here. Wonders in the Sky, Jacques Vallée, Unexplained Aerial Objects from Antiquity to Modern Times. Here's the reference for it. 1347 BC, Nile River Valley, Egypt, Akhenaten's flying disc. So this is from 1347 BC. Pharaoh Akhenaten had a unique experience that was to shape Egyptian history, according to the inscription on the frontier stela found on the circumference of the El Amarna. Akhenaten was strolling along the river, admiring the splendors of nature one summer morning when he looked up and saw, quote, a shining disc descended from the sky. So here we've got historical UFO sightings dating back to the ancient Egyptians, which I think is very interesting because there were no defense contractors back at these times. There was no Boeing, there was no Northrop, there was no Raytheon. So who's building these? Where did these come from? At least we have some kind of documentation to back this up. Let's continue on.
And disc shape too, which is important.
Go ahead, Preston.
It's referencing a disc shape because people keep telling me, oh, there are no early historical reports of disc-shaped craft. It's simply not true.
Simply not true. Did the ancient Romans report sightings of UFOs as early as 100 BC? Here we go. This is Evening Star, June 14th, 1959. Flying saucers of Roman days were shields. So you can kind of see people reported things in the sky that they were familiar with during everyday life. Yeah. That's how they reported this. So it says, even the ancient Romans of 2,000 years ago saw flying saucers, but they linked them to flying shields. This is probably the meaning of the passage in a work by Julius, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce this person's last name here. A 4th century Latin poet says Nabi Railsback, a classic scholar from Moline, Illinois, who is studying in Rome. He says he came across the sentence in one of the writings referring to a phenomenon reported observed near Rome in 100 BC. Quote, at sunset, a circular object like a shield was seen to sweep across the sky from west to east. So now we're talking about the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Romans are reporting these as well. So this is way prior to June 24th, 1947. This phenomenon dates back so much earlier than we all realize. And I challenge the Department of Defense, who tried to rebrand UFOs as UAP during the Nimitz encounter, and anything prior to the Nimitz encounter didn't exist. Well, here we have 2 reports already that blows that theory out of the water. We've already got 2 reports. So let's continue on here. So is this what the Romans saw? Yes. Is this what they were running up against? Something like this. It's very possible. Back to the Otto Binder reports. We've talked about these before, but I threw these in here because it's all part of this prehistory UFO cases here. So this is October 12th, 1796. On Columbus Day, over 170 years ago, Canadian observers reported an astonishing fleet of airships, UFOs, with portholes and visible occupants sailing over the Bay of Fundy from the Pacific Stars and Stripes. So now we've got 1796. long before the Wright brothers flew back in 1903.
Occupants too. That's
Here's
crazy.
the full color rendering. This gives you an idea of what this may have looked like. Let's continue on here. November 13th, 1833. A crowd on both the American and Canadian side saw a peculiar square-shaped UFO hover over Niagara Falls for an hour, after which it sped away toward the ocean. 1833, and these are being reported. This is a cube hovering over Niagara Falls, seen by many witnesses. Who's building this? What is the origin point of this? There were no defense.
Be a natural atmospheric phenomenon, not of that shape.
Not of that shape, and hovering there for an hour. So there's something else is going on here. Here's our full color rendering. This gives you an idea of what this may have looked like. Another one, July 1868. Villagers in Chile were frightened by a giant armor-plated machine covered with steel scales whose twin searchlight eyes stabbed down brilliantly. I love the way they put this. So you've got this scaled flying wing, these beaming lights coming down, illuminating the town below back in 1868, long before powered flight. So this is being reported. Here's our full color rendering. This just gives you an idea of what this may have looked like. Now, I did some background work on this one. 19th century's most astounding sighting was in 1874 at Oaxaca, Mexico, where a giant trumpet observed in the sky swinging gently for 6 minutes, observed by many stunned people. We're talking about an orange-colored trumpet hovering over the city of Oaxaca, Mexico, back in 1874, something that looked like this. So if someone knows what this is, I'd love to hear about it. It's definitely not anything built by defense contractors.
I expect that's another cultural overlay. They're like, well, it looks like a trumpet. That's the closest thing they could associate it with.
That's very possible. Very possible.
I'll tell you a secret. It makes me think of Talata because he's more arched than that, but it just depends on how he arrays. But he can erase anything in the sky he wants to. And if he wanted to show them a trumpet, they would have seen a trumpet. So
that's very possible. That's very possible. So then we want to continue going down our timeline here. 1897 mystery airship wave, where we had literally thousands of newspaper clippings citing reports of a gondola supported by what looked like an airbag. There was a wing on both sides. There was a rudder at the back. There were well-dressed, eccentric inventor types seen on the top deck of these craft. There were big black dogs seen on the deck of these craft. There were anchors being seen lowered from the bottom of these. Laughter was heard from these craft, and they were beaming these spotlights down to the towns below, which caused all this chaos. This is absolutely something that was going on here. So first UFO seen by thousands over California in 1896. So it actually started about 1 year prior to. Erie 1896 sighting. So this is the Oakland Tribune, March 22nd, 1966. They highlighted these 1897 mystery airship sighting reports. Great airship flap stirred state in 1887. So what did these things look like? So here you can see the townspeople shocked. They were horrified. They were surprised at these multiple configuration strange craft that were beaming spotlights down. So there was a power source involved in this. There were very few to none daytime sightings, and there were very few landing sightings. But in one case where one of these craft landed and the townspeople came up to one of these craft and looked and interviewed the quote unquote pilot, they said the pilot was wearing, quote, smoky colored glasses. So it's sounding like a man-made technology here. It's not sounding like an extraterrestrial technology.
I agree, actually, because
in 1897, that's not possible. Yeah.
Dirigibles were officially invented just a few years after this.
Yep.
So
a couple of quick highlights here. The wave actually began November 18th, 1896 in Sacramento. The object cast down brilliant beams of light on the city before it moved toward San Francisco. Well, the same thing happened during the Hudson Valley wave between 1982 and 1989, where we had these beaming spotlights coming down from the boomerangs. Same things going on here. Eyewitness described the craft as being 150 feet in length with 4 rotor-like arms. In some cases, anchors attached to ropes were dropped from the mysterious craft, and laughter could be heard originating from the interior. So again, it's sounding like a man-made technology here. By May of 1897, virtually all the sightings ended. So these are just kind of a couple of the important bulletin points here. A genuine aerial ship. This is Record Union, Sacramento, November 23rd, 1896. The strange visitor seen there on Saturday evening. Yesterday's San Francisco Call has the following account of the airship having been seen over Oakland on Saturday evenings. Now, there are some who say that the whole 1897 mystery airship wave report sightings were nothing more than yellow journalism. I just don't think that's the case. There's too many reports.
No.
Walter Bosley has done a fantastic job. Got to give credit to Walter Bosley tracking these reports. He talks about the Aero Club. Just a very good job by Walter Bosley. So this is kind of what these witnesses are reporting. Strange shaped craft, a gondola. We've got wings. Let me do a little bit of a blow up here. This gives you an idea. If you look close, you can see the inventor wearing a top hat. It's really screaming a man-made technology here. So any backup? Is there any proof to this? Here's San Francisco Sunday morning, November 29th, 1896. Here it says 3 airships. The mayor saw this. So the mayor was involved in this. Let me see if I can do a little bit of a full color rendering here. We'll blow this up. The mayor chimed in. He also had a sighting. Something like this was seen back in 1896, even by the mayor. So let's continue. What do these craft look like? So if we take all of the information from the articles and the newspaper clippings and we feed that into AI, this is what we're going to get. This is what kind of these people were reporting all the way back to 1896. These beaming spotlights coming down. You can see this gondola almost look like an airbag. Let's go to the next one here. Again, these beaming spotlights down. There was a cockpit. You could call it a crew compartment. You've got these anchors being lowered down. You've got these laughter coming from the craft. So again, it's screaming a man-made technology. We'll do a couple more here. This just gives you a broad cross-section of what these newspaper clipping sighting reports are actually describing here. Multiple crew members with these beaming spotlights. All right, so this is the final one for this series. Preston, what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Do you know what a parabolic mirror is?
A parabolic mirror, yes, I do.
Okay, you realize that when you shine a light into a parabolic mirror, it shines down a beam of light.
Exactly, that's
very
exactly
easy
correct.
to do. Right. All right. Just saying.
So we had electric lights at this time for, it was late 1870s they were invented. I suspect that these are man-made, but it is far more likely than people realize, because I'm doing that whole series on UFOs in your hometown. I'm seeing a lot of these reports all the way back and all across the United States and frankly the world. And it did reach out into the 1900s a little bit.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. It sure appears that the intensity of these spotlights was very intense. I mean, it looked like it had its own power source. That's what it appears from the sighting reports. So, Preston, you were just talking about the early 1900s. So here's Fate magazine, March 1971. Flying Cucumber of 1903. This is Helmer, Indiana, March 17th, 1903. So this young girl, along with her family, if you look on the upper right, they saw something that they said looked like a flying cucumber back in 1903. Something like this was seen by this young girl, and they did a whole magazine article about this. So I think it's something to consider when you look at the big picture here. All right, next one. Take a look at this. Dear sir, this is Alabama in 1937. My father and several other people saw a UFO. According to my father, it looks something like this. Who's building this in 1937? Very interesting. So let's see if we can make this thing come alive. And you can see it was rotating along the vertical axis. Something like this was seen back in 1937. So someone's building these. I think it's very interesting. Let's continue on here. Foo Fighters are latest. Pilots flying over Germany at night report that strange balls of fire are following them around on their missions. They have christened these strange phenomenon Foo Fighters. So this is Newcastle Sun, January 3rd, 1945. So during 1944 over Berlin, we had multiple reports from B-17 pilots flying over Berlin where these red, orange, and yellow orbs, about 4 to 5 feet in diameter, would circle the squadron of B-17s and then peel away. And this went on multiple times, seen by multiple crew members. Okay, so it's not only the B-17s, the B-24 Liberator pilots also reported Foo Fighters, and not just the B-24s and the B-17s, but in the Pacific theater, the B-29 pilots also flying over Tokyo, they had Foo Fighter sightings as well. So we've got 3 different bombers, multiple crew members reporting these Foo Fighters during the mid to close of World War II, which I think is historically significant. Okay, so this is a real good example of one of these APRO files. This is an original sketch from the collection. I scanned all these in as JPEGs at 300 DPI. So here you can see, and I'm just going to go over some of the writing here. Saw about January 1950 to 1951, about 10:30 p.m. It was a clear moonlit night. And then he says that it had an orange glowing corona discharge along the outer circumference of the craft itself. You can see the seams, what look like rivets or fasteners. This could be Zeus fasteners. There are circular porthole windows wrapped around the outer circumference. And then we'll just read kind of what he says here. After it slowly started to move, this band of orange sprang like a neon light, blinked a couple of times, then stayed on. The saucer then started to wobble a bit as it moved away. So Preston, here's this falling leaf phenomenon again, where when we see these dish-shaped craft at low altitude in a localized gravity field, they seem to be unstable first. And then when they take off, they seem to be more stable, and this falling leaf phenomenon departs. It goes away. So are we talking about a man-made technology? Over here on the upper right, it's a little bit difficult to see. Now, this is Rhode Island. He says, written vertically here, construction looked man-made like an airplane built, 50 to 51. So is this one of ours back in 1950 to 51? Yes.
Okay. It's got rivets. Come on.
I mean, there you go. You know,
he noted it too. So
he noted it. Yes, he noted it, which I think is interesting. So let's use this as a guide. Let's see if we can take this into AI. And this is my blow up here. Construction looked man-made, such as an airplane is built. So even this person, Newport, Rhode Island, he believes it's a man-made craft. So here's the full color rendering directly from the sketch.
Now, at this time in 1950, what was publicly available was nothing like this. I mean, we were still pretty crude in our planes.
We were flying the F-86 Saberjet back in 1951.
Okay.
You know, so here we have this craft that has rivets. It's got fasteners. It's got seams. It's got panel lines. It's got multiple porthole windows. And this gentleman is saying it definitely looks man-made to him. Here's my final rendering of what this craft may have looked like. So this is Rhode Island, 1950 to 1951. Let's continue on here. So here's the AutoCAD drawing that I did. This gives you all the breakdowns, gives you the date, gives you the location. I've got the seams here. I've got the rivets. I've got the Zeus fastener. So if you look at this and you base it from other historical cases, again, it's screaming a man-made technology here. So elements of man-made UFOs. How do you tell the difference, right? How do you tell the difference? Here's a couple of bullet items. Number one, seams, panels, Zeus fasteners, hex head bolts, rivets, socket head cap screws, tubes, pipes, and cylinders on the bottom, prongs or protrusions with spheres at the end. So this is like almost the most important bullet item here. I've got so many of these cases where there's this prong sticking out of the UFO and a ball at the end of it. This just keeps on popping up again and again. Static electrical disturbances. So what would that mean? That would mean static on the radio when you pull up to one of these. This would mean your electrical system on your ignition on your vehicle
Right.
conks
That's
out
right.
and your car stops. That's going
Right.
on.
Right.
Multicolored lights that flash in a reporting sequence, in a repeating sequence. So we've got the reds go off, the yellows go off, the whites go off, the blues go off, and then the whole pattern repeats the sequence. That's
Right.
another telltale sign of a man-made technology. High-pitched drilling noise. This is another significant telltale sign. Just before these craft depart, I'm talking about dozens and dozens of witnesses report this high-pitched drilling noise before this thing takes off, and then it lifts off the ground, hovers there for 30 seconds, and then departs like a spark on a grinding wheel. We always hear about this high-pitched drilling noise.
I've got a couple of, what's a Zeus fastener?
A Zeus fastener is a quarter-turn fastener that you see on the forward nose of a Cessna 172, the engine cowling. When you do a quarter turn, these things seal. So that's what a Zeus fastener is. They can fasten down cowlings on the front engine bay of aircraft. That's what they are.
Right.
High-pitched drilling noise. We talked about that. The sound of bees, hissing snakes, or frying bacon. That's another good telltale sign associated with high voltage electrical charges. So if you hear of any one of these or a multitude of these, there's a very good case for a man-made technology being associated with the sighting.
I want to push back just a little bit because the sound of bees is reported in a number of what I think are absolutely legitimate cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That are not man-made.
What y'all need to do is go out on the internet and look to see an early Harrier engine start up. Okay. And what you start hearing is that electrical kind of sound, and you're listening to it because that's a turbine in a different position other than, horizontal. It's vertical. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it can open and close to emit more air or less air. In other words, to focus the airflow like a nozzle. And they emit one of the highest stinking noises you've ever heard in your life. And that's what a lot of people hear. Ask yourself why.
I think some of the good evidence we have that this man-made stuff is out there is there are so many eyewitness reports. It's not just coming from whistleblowers who says this is happening. There's eyewitness reports, people who see this.
Right.
That's correct. So we want to talk about astronaut Gordon Cooper, his UFO-related events. So number one, he wrote a letter to the United Nations regarding UFOs in 1978. Attempted UFO intercept over West Germany in 1951. UFO landing case at Edwards Air Force Base back in 1957. And all of his sighting reports are in his book, Leap of Faith. So I just encourage people that are interested to take a look at his book, and you can read his own personal encounters. So this is his 1951 West Germany encounter. For 2 consecutive weeks, the meteorologist at the base where he was stationed saw these fleets of UFOs. They were silver metallic dish-shaped craft with domes on top. By week 2, Gordon Cooper talked to his wingman. He said, you know what, let's try to intercept one of these things. They went at full power at 45 degrees angle of attack, and they could not intercept the discs because these craft could turn on a dime. They could make 90-degree left-hand turns. They could fly backwards. So it was on another level of technology here. So I'm not going to read all of this, but this is the Corvallis Gazette-Times, October 11th, 2004. Cooper brave for speaking on UFOs. And here he says, earlier in 1951, Cooper and other personnel several times cited an entire formation of circular objects passing over their Air Force base in Western Germany. Quote, we could never get close enough in our Sabre jets to pin them down, but they were round in shape and very metallic looking. This is coming from a Mercury 7 astronaut.
Yeah, well, the question here is, did he see rivets? Was this?
No, he did not. When I heard history for me, my father knew Gordon Cooper. He worked with him.
Okay.
He was an engineer also, and he and my dad did the underground stuff under Disney World together. And I grew up listening to him talk. And he was dead serious. He said there was nothing to show how you could get in it. He was very descriptive about it. He never stopped talking about it with my dad. My dad was contacting, and he knew it. And it's real. He went nuts.
Probably, is what you're saying.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Okay,
let's continue on here. So Now, this is all according to date here. These are all organized by date. June 17th, 1952. I think you're familiar with this one, Preston. Hasselbeck, Germany. So we've got the mayor of the town and I think a 9-year-old child. They came across a 49-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. And the source of this is MUFON Journal, November 1988, Hynek UFO Report 1977. So they were on a motorcycle. The motorcycle died, and they had to push the motorcycle by hand like a couple miles back toward the city. Now, it was the young girl that thought she originally saw 2 deer. She didn't know what these things were. She thought she saw 2 deer. Now, as they got closer, they saw these about 4-foot tall humanoid-looking beings wearing a one-piece wrinkled silver flight suit. They were looking at the ground almost like they were picking grass, and at least one of them had this camera device mounted to its chest and was moving the camera from side to side like it was taking pictures of the grass or the plants. And it's really weird. I'm wondering, why do these beings associated with these craft, why are they so interested in lavender fields and flowers and grass? Why are they so interested in our biology? That's my question. Because if you look at the first 5 minutes of Steven Spielberg's movie E.T., the entire 5 minutes of that beginning of that movie are all about E.T. preserving that little plant. I think that's very interesting. Why is
They're
that
cataloging and removing all biological life from the planet to preserve it because we have catastrophe coming. That's why.
Could very well be. Now,
Just say, yeah.
when one of these beings saw they were being watched by the 2 witnesses, they scurried up to the top of this dish-shaped craft, and then this black counting tower retracted into the body of the craft. They hopped onto that. That black counting tower pushed through the bottom of the craft, levitating it. And then I'm going to go to the next slide here. This gives you an idea of what this thing looked like. So you can see the witness on the left. These are the 2 humanoid-looking beings. Now, this thing had a series of slots wrapped around the outer circumference. There was a double row of slots. Let me go to the next one here. And you can see here, this is Oscar and Gabriella Linke, UFOweeklynews.com. This is the photograph of the 2 witnesses that actually saw this thing. Here's the original sketch that came with the report. Very well documented case. Now, once that black counting tower went through the bottom of the craft, lifting it up, there was a double row of flames that came out of the slots, you could say. The whole thing levitated off the ground. And then here is Rudy's drawing that gives you an idea of what the beginning part of the sighting looked like, and then the end part of the sighting off to the left here. So very good historical case. And here's the rendering of what it looked like as this craft was departing. So this black counting tower pushed through the bottom of the craft. What kind of documentation do we have? This is the sworn affidavit, July 1st, 1952, where they talked about this in great detail. We've got a CIA document. So this is the 23rd of August, 1952. They confirmed the sighting. We've got the Times Tribune, July 2nd, 1952. They went into this sighting in great detail. Flying saucer takes off in red zone forest. Charlotte Observer, July 2nd, 1952. West is checking refugee story about flying saucer. So there's a lot of good documentation on this particular case. Now, no discussion about UFOs in the year 1952 would be complete unless we talk about the Flatwoods Monster, West Virginia, September 12, 1952. And Frank Ficino is the world expert on this. He just published his new book, so I want to give credit to Frank that discussed this case in great detail. So in a nutshell, we had multiple things going on at the same time. It was a literal invasion that night. There were so many things going on there, and Frank did a great job tracking all this down. But there was you could call it teardrop-shaped UFO that passed over multiple cities. It actually landed on the top vista of a kind of a low rolling hill in Flatwoods, West Virginia. These are the witnesses that saw this. So this is the Charlton Gazette, September 15th, 1952. We've got Mrs. May, and we've got a minimum of 6 young boys that got a real good look at this thing. So they took a flashlight. They took a dog with them. They started going up this hill. And Preston, when they got to a particular oak tree, they saw something that absolutely horrified them and changed their life forever. Absolutely changed their life forever. And this is what they saw. This is a very unusual, and I'm going to go over the dimensions here. But this thing had a metallic understructure. It had a black spade-shaped helmet with a cutout window with a red-colored orb with 2 green/yellow spotlights beaming down. There was what looked like antenna on either side, and then on this back bottom section, there were flutes or tubes with gas coming out of them. The witnesses were sick from this, from the gas. I'm going to go on to the next slide, and this is our latest full-color rendering. This gives you an idea of what they encountered back in 1952. Just absolutely horrifying. It changed their life forever. So let's go to the AutoCAD drawing. This gives you the dimensions. So this thing was 12 feet tall, 4 feet in diameter, black split spade-shaped helmet with a cutout window with a glass pane in there.
Yeah.
The interior head was red in color. You've got the antenna, which I do think are static electrical discharge devices. And this is what they encountered. And Frank Ficino absolutely gets credit for doing the legwork on this case back in 1952.
Yeah, 100%.
Here is my
What do you
3D
think it was, Michael?
What was that?
What do you think it was?
You know, I think there could be a man-made component to this. And the only reason why I mentioned this and I talked to Frank about this is if you look at the configuration here, look at how that spade-shaped helmet section tapers up and then goes to kind of a rounded point. You see the same thing on electrical insulators. So
Yes.
there's absolutely high voltage going on with this. There's no doubt about it. And then these antenna, quote unquote, antenna sticking out, I think that these are static electrical discharge probes. I think that's what's going on here.
Yep.
Just
It's
looking
us.
at the high voltage electrical components.
Right.
This is about a 40-degree look down on the 3D model. And then here's Frank standing right next to the oak tree where this thing was at. So if we
Yeah.
could go back to 1952, this is exactly where it all went down. So credit goes to Frank Ficino for pinning all this down. He did a tremendous amount of research on this case.
Yeah, we're bringing him back. He was on the show earlier.
Yeah.
Still discovering information. He's just found out some more
Wow.
witnesses to this, literally. So it's ongoing.
Yeah.
Yep. It needs to be highlighted. Absolutely needs to be highlighted. Braxton County Monster, updated edition. So this was kind of the first pass on the cover of the older book, but he has a brand new book now. So back to Gordon Cooper. We already talked about the West Germany, but we want to focus in on point number 3 here. UFO landing case at Edwards Air Force Base in 1957. So again, it's leap of faith. If anyone wants to follow along, all the references are there. And so this is what actually went down. They were setting up precision landing instrumentation at Edwards Air Force Base, the dry lake bed. And as they were doing this, about a 20-foot diameter dish-shaped craft hovered over the dry lake bed. It extended the landing gear legs. It landed on the dry lake bed, sat there for 60 seconds, hovered back up. The landing gear retracted into the bottom of the craft, and then this thing flew away at a medium rate of speed. And here's the point, Preston, is that all of this was documented on motion picture film reel.
Yep.
It was
And
documented
saw-
on
Yeah.
motion picture
Did he
film
ever
reel.
talk to you about this particular incident?
Yeah, we talked about it. We
No, I
absolutely.
mean, did Gordon Cooper ever mention this?
I
one?
am privy to a conversation between Gordon Cooper and my father about this. I'm privy to it. I am not allowed to talk. And there are reasons why.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are the reasons why?
I would never say it out loud on this show ever. Not going to happen.
Well, I'm going
But
to
I heard
ask
the
you.
conversation. You have to be out in the middle of a field, okay? I'm not joking. It's
No.
not funny. Okay, it's not funny.
Gordon Cooper's involvement in this is when they brought the film back in. He did unreel the film,
Yep.
but he did not run it through a projector. This is what he said. And then there was a courier who we believe came from Andrews Air Force Base. He had a briefing documentation. He had a cabinet. He had luggage, and he was handcuffed to this briefcase.
Yep.
When the film was brought into the briefcase, it was handcuffed to the courier and then sent to who knows where. It could have
That's
been
right.
Andrews. It could have been Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the Foreign Technology Division, and that film has disappeared since 1957.
It's
Right.
somewhere, and I want to see it.
Yep, we should all see it. Corvallis Gazette Times, October 11th, 2004. Cooper saw the film as soon as it was rushed through the development process. Quote, this is Gordon Cooper. It was a typical circular-shaped UFO, he recollected. Not too many people saw it because it took off at quite a sharp angle and just climbed straight out of sight. He reviewed the film a dozen times before it was forwarded to Washington, never to be surfaced again. So here's my question. We always hear about these congressional hearings that we had two weeks ago. We had congressional hearings in Washington, D.C. Why are they not pulling this film?
100%.
They can't. This one is not where they can touch it for reasons. I can tell you one thing I know about this because I remember seeing my father do this, and I know this because of what I do. That sharp angle that it took off, it literally did this. It came up and it did the what I call the crouch, the kneel, and it went. And that is, if you ever see a craft do that, you're looking at an ET, because none of our stuff can do that. All right, none of them. And my father was real impressed when he heard that, because he's seen that. And by that age, I definitely had seen it. And it just impressed me that this was the real deal. I will say that much. This is the real deal. They're not joking. And I think that the military-industrial complex has their gets on it, and you will never see it in your lifetime ever. It will go down, never to be seen, ever.
As you know, Dolly.
I will never trust the government because of this until and unless they can reveal that. I don't really want to listen to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. They've had more than enough time to get this film.
Somebody has
They
it.
have more than enough. And not only that, Dolly, every single military conflict that we've had, okay?
Yes.
World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, Desert Storm, there were multiple UFO sightings reported by the military in every confrontation.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Every single one of them. Yeah. Yep. You're exactly correct.
So, like, what about the gun camera footage from the P-51s during World War II? Where is all that gun camera footage? Where are those film reels? We'll take it back to Wendell Stevens. He talked about how over the Arctic regions, there were multiple this is after World War II, immediately after World War II, multiple B-29 bombers that were outfitted with dozens and dozens of still cameras and then motion picture film cameras, where UFOs were seen to come up off the icebergs and then go right up to the B-29 and tuck itself between the trailing edge of the main wing and the leading edge of the horizontal stabilizer, park itself 20 feet off the right fuselage while all the cameras are rolling. Okay.
Yep.
Where are those films, Dolly? Where are those?
Yeah, there's more than that, because we have modern day photography, because you know as well as I, it's not just gun cameras on a jet. Okay. They have 1080 AP, full color, full resolution, cameras on these things. And they even have cameras on them in the cockpit. Okay. They wear cameras, and they've got, and I guarantee you they've got it, because I know they've got where multiple craft will come up to a plane. They'll be up underneath the wing. They will be above the head, behind the tail, to the two sides behind the tail. And every time that jet moves, they move with it in absolute perfect unison. Okay. It will deep dive. They will deep dive with it. They will go up with it. They play with them for several minutes at a time while the pilots are losing their minds and not able to deal with it at all. And they've got plenty of footage like that. Plenty.
I can't think of a more intentional.
I know that we had one pilot that I saw rolled the jet and then did a loop back, and they still stayed with it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Where's that film? Yeah. I'm sick and tired of hearing them say they don't know anything. Oh, yes, they do.
I know.
They know way more than you know.
This is see these little white dots every now and then. They have such good footage. It's insane.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the kind of information that needs to be presented in open congressional hearings, streamed live around the world. There's no excuse. They have it. They've already proven they have it. And you can go back to Frank Ficino where he wrote the book Shoot Them Down. As you know, there was an order, a standing order from the Air Force to our Air Force pilots during the early 1950s to shoot these things down. They wanted one of these things. However, immediately after that order was put out, they rescinded the order because we lost multiple pilots and multiple aircraft. They rescinded the order. Where is all that gun camera footage from all of those attempted intercepts? That's what we need to find out.
Yeah.
Do we
don't
have
want
any
to admit
idea where it is?
Yeah.
It must be somewhere.
I have a really good idea.
Okay.
Now we all know. Okay.
There's some cases in Australia I want to talk about here. This is October 1957. Humanoid being departing the forward section of a dish-shaped craft with some type of a light being associated with the being itself. So something like this seen in Australia. I'm going to do another quick one here just to get these pinned down. This is all by date. 1958, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. We talked about this. Chester Grzinski is our primary witness. He's no longer with us, but I did speak to him on the phone long time ago. Again, this is a USS FDR. It's around 9:30 p.m. at night, and we've got multiple crew members that were rushing to get up onto the flight deck that you see on this photograph here. And again, as you know, it was the USS FDR that had multiple UFO incursions because this was the first aircraft to carry nuclear weapons on board. That might be the reason why. So, according to Chester Grzinski, all of these naval personnel and officers were rushing up to get to the flight deck. So there was screaming, there was yelling, there was swearing. People were climbing ladders to get up there. And when they got there, this is what they saw. Now, there were 24 other witnesses, according to Chester Grzinski. They saw a 200-foot-long cigar-shaped craft with these rectangle windows. And according to Chester Grzinski, they could feel the heat emanating off this craft onto their faces. So it's a close encounter of the first kind because it's a visual sighting. It's a close encounter of the second kind because there was a physical effect. He also said walking between these rectangular windows were these humanoid-looking beings. So now it's a close encounter of the third kind. So let's continue on here. Here is his original sketch. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there was another even higher resolution original sketch within the APRO files. And so you can see here the heat waves are coming off the craft. He's got a detail view, and he said that one of these beings raised its hand above his head and was waving to the naval personnel back down on the flight deck. So there was like this attempted communication almost. I'm going to continue on. So we've seen this before, but I wanted to do an additional pass on this because there's more sketches associated with this case. I'm going to do a blow up here. This gives people an idea of what this may have looked like. Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, with the USS FDR here. So here is the additional sketch. Now, I won't read all this, but I think it's important we do some of these here. It says, "Dear sir," this is to the APRO personnel. "Me and about 25 people seen this craft, 1958 or 1959. I think we were off Florida somewhere. Shakedown cruise, no aircraft aboard at the time. It hovered 2 to 5 minutes. And then it says, it turned red-orange, then shot out of sight. We had a lot of Navy brass come aboard after that with the chief of naval operations. The Navy does not say anything about it. I sent a letter to NICAP of Kensington, Maryland, and to the National Archives and Record Services, Washington, D.C., to see if that UFO report has been declassified. After a period of time, I went AWOL from the Roosevelt. I didn't return, continue on, to the same ship for duty. I was discharged December 1960, general discharge from the active duty. Thank you for any information, Chester Grzinski." So here's this gentleman who was on the ship. He saw this. He also said that top brass was involved. They knew about this. So how many other witnesses, including naval top brass, know about this? And as you know, Preston, it's not the U.S. Air Force that's driving the cover-up. It's the U.S. Navy driving the cover-up.
Yeah, I did a deep dive on that case. They were threatened. There's, like you said, many other cases on that ship. They were caught on radar. And several of the witnesses have come forth, not to that particular incident, but to the multiple incidents involved with that particular ship. It's a big event that is absolutely undeniable.
Correct. Okay, let's continue on. Here's another one here.
Wow.
I did not hear any sound, but this this guy standing next said it made a roaring or low-pitched grinding noise. Isn't that interesting? The windows were not lighted up too well. On the inside, the figures seemed to be dark. The outline, I saw one of them. Before the UFO took off, the occupants moved out of the windows and the thing took off. And I don't think this has ever been seen before. This is one of the scans that I did that's never been seen. This is his original sketch. So it's a good piece of information. It really is important here. This one walking away from window, when this one was out of sight from the window, then the other one walked away also. I had the feeling that those were not men, human. Over. So Dolly, what are your thoughts?
Well, okay. The first thing that jumps out at me is it turned red-orange when it was taking off.
The craft,
before it zoomed up. That would be a power-up. That close to the ground, they would have to. And the fact that they were hot is important because UFOs always come in hot. And if they saw a ship and came down to it without cooling off first, it would be hot to everybody. It's dangerously hot. It can burn you. It can radiate you. Okay. The fact that it spent so little time doing that is interesting to me as well. I need to know how long it was. How many feet?
A couple minute sighting, but he also talks about a low pitched grinding noise.
Yeah,
which is similar to
that would be moving batteries okay. All craft have batteries, okay? And usually when they come in atmosphere, they go to battery power. They come off their type of nuclear power, all right? And to move the battery packs, that's the grinding noise. So that would be them moving battery packs away while they're getting ready to take off. That sudden plume of red, was it surrounding the ship? The entire
he talks about heat coming off the craft, a red-orange glow associated with the craft.
That would be it powering up. That close to them, they would have seen it like that. And they would have heard the battery packs moving into position because they can't be in the position that they're in for them to fly in atmosphere. They have to go back up into the belly of the craft, okay? Because a field generates around them when they go full antigraft from that type of energy system. So yeah, I think maybe this is the real deal.
It's interesting they're waving too.
You're waving. Yeah, and they couldn't be in the windows when it started up. There's no, we shut, like I can look out my craft when I want to. A window can appear, I can't even describe the process to you. Just trust me. We can build, a window is there and it just shows up. It opens up, okay? But when I go high power, they have to be completely shut and nobody can go near the skin of the craft when we're in full power. Nobody. We all stay in the central part of the craft. We stay away from the sides. So, this seems like this could be the real deal.
Okay.
Yeah, and the nuclear
I'm curious as to why this particular type of craft came down because I've never heard of this type of craft. Honestly, I've never seen one. It's possible it exists. That's why I wanted to know how long it is because if it was really long, as long as the boat, okay, absolutely.
Well, at least 100 feet across, at least.
Yeah, they're pretty big. They have to be pretty big.
Of 100 feet across.
Yeah. And so I think you heard the batteries going up. They powered up, which turned it glowy reddish orange, okay? And they took off. They were still hot from coming in atmosphere. I mean, they probably just saw it and came down for it. I've done curious maneuvers too. I'll see something that's like, what is that? And I'll go look at it. Okay.
That's another good sketch. I think that actually shows you how big it was.
So it's pretty damn big. That's a big damn aircraft carrier. Okay.
Scale, we're talking at least 300 feet. If this is to scale.
Yeah.
Minimum.
So I think it was a real deal. And I think that the occupants, when they're checking it out, there was something about it that they wanted to know. If it was
nuclear,
it was an unarmed, there was nothing out except crews. In other words, there weren't any military things going on it. So that probably would have made them even more curious why they're doing it. Okay. they can get a lot off of you when they come down. One of them is they read your minds the whole way in, okay? And they have the ability to pull information off that boat. They're listening to everything that's going on that boat, all your communications, everything. And they will scan you, look at you, listen to you, and decide why you're there, and then take off. And it was a very curious crew coming down for that, I'm pretty sure, you know? And the fact that they were near Guantanamo Bay, that's, between Cuba and the US, okay? Between Cuba and the Keys. And that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a very important.
And it's 58. That's even more because there was a flap in 58. Okay. Big flap. All up and down the eastern seaboard. You know that, right? Florida has weird sightings, and it's almost always nuclear involvement. What's going on in Florida? What are you doing? All the way up the East Coast, all the way to Shag Harbor, by the way. And even the West Coast has a lot going on out there that they follow and they watch. So yeah, it seems real to me that it could be.
Go to the next.
A little bit of a blow up here.
Nice.
I think we've got this pinned down pretty good. So back to Father Gill sighting, June 26, 1959. This is in New Guinea. At least 20 additional witnesses with Father Gill saw this approximately 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that had a second, you could call it a wedding cake teardrop section on the top. There were prongs coming down, which I don't think were landing gear. They look like landing gear, but I don't think they're landing gear.
Why not?
He also mentioned that there were 4 humanoid-looking beings on the deck of the craft. 2 of them were near the outer rim of the craft. The other 2 were near the center. They were more obscured. Now, there appeared to be some type of communication going on between Father Gill and at least one crew member, because this crew member was waving back to Father Gill. Father Gill had a lantern, and he started swinging the lantern, and then the craft returned the movement. So there was absolutely some type of interaction between the beings and Father Gill. I'm going to move forward here. This is a 45-degree white/light blue light that came off at about a 45 degree, and you can see one of the crew members waving back down. Here's the map that shows you where all this went down. So this is the lower right-hand section of Papua New Guinea. This is the blow-up that shows you where this went. This is all from the APRO archives. And then this is the final blow-up that shows you where this all happened. So here's the original sketch from Father Gill. And again, I don't think we're talking about landing gear. I think these could be discharge probes associated with this vehicle. This is from International UFO Reporter, 1977. So you've got all of the other witnesses that pretty much describe the same craft. Their sketches were very consistent here. Here are some of the original photos I scanned in from the APRO archives. This gives you an idea of where all this took place. This is at the mission here. So you can see this is what the mission looks like. So this is the location of where Father Gill was stationed.
Wow.
Yep. And let me go to the next one. This is the pathway that gets you to the mission. And then this is the actual beach where this thing was hovering over, the actual location of where all this happened here. This is from the original slide. So close-up observations, June 27th, 1959, New Guinea. Witnesses Reverend William Gill and local natives. Brightly lit shaft of blue light shining upward from center, 35 feet in diameter, distance 45. So the bottom section of the craft was 35 feet in diameter. The upper craft, which looked like a 2-tiered wedding cake, was about 20 feet in diameter with 4 humanoid-looking beings on the top deck of the craft itself. This is another sketch that gives you an idea of what this looked like. So let's see if we can take this, put this into AI, and we end up with something that looks like this back in that time frame. So this is the best that I could come up with, just to give an idea of what this may have looked like when Father Gill saw it. Now, let's continue on. April 24th, 1964, Socorro, New Mexico. We've got Lonnie Zamora, who was a credible police officer, was chasing a speeder, Socorro, New Mexico. Now, just prior to when Lonnie Zamora got into this pursuit with a speeder, there was a group of, you could call them travelers. They were sightseers that were going through Socorro. And one of these craft flew right down and flew over the hood of the vehicle, right in front of their windshield. They stopped, pulled over to a gas station, went in, talked to the gas station attendant, and the exact words were, quote, "You people really fly your aircraft low around here." That's what this guy said. So it wasn't just Lonnie Zamora. We have a secondary witness with his family that also saw this off-white egg-shaped craft at the exact same time. So when this thing flew over Lonnie Zamora, he gave up chasing the speeder and he went over some low rolling hills. This is not too far from downtown. And when he got there, he saw this egg-shaped craft sitting on landing gear. He said that there were two humanoid-looking beings wearing white-colored, you could call them coveralls. They were about 4 feet tall, oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose. I'm going to go to the next slide here. This shows you the map of where all this went down. Gives you the exact location. These are some of the original photographs of the scene. So it's very barren. There's a lot of low shrubbery. You don't really see any trees. You've got some low mountains in the background. This is another shot of what the area looks like. This is the road that he took on his squad car. We go to the next one. Here's the location of where the craft was parked on the ground. This is the outside dotted line is the perimeter of White Sands Missile Range. And this took place about 5 miles west of the outer perimeter of White Sands Missile Range. So here you see Lonnie pulling up his car, his squad car, looking off to the left. You can see the egg-shaped craft. Here's the color illustration. This gives you an idea of what it looked like. And move on to the next one. Some of the original artwork associated with the case. And we'll talk about the insignia as well. So by the time Lonnie got close to this craft, there was a very loud roaring noise and a flame that came out of the bottom of it. And he basically hit the deck. He was scared. He didn't know what was actually going on here. So here he is encountering this craft. Now, this thing had a blue colored flame coming out of the bottom of the craft. And I'm proposing that it could be the very same blue colored flame that was associated with the Cash Landrum incident, December 29th, 1980. We've got very similar things going on here. So flying bathtub seen by motorist. We'll talk about some of the newspaper clippings. El Paso Herald Post, 4/30, 1964. These are the kind of craft that were being seen by witnesses in April of 1964. A lot of times you have to go overseas to get this information. So this is another foreign publication, and they had a really good rendering of what this craft looked like. You can see Lonnie kind of hitting the deck on the right foreground here, and you've got this insignia on the craft. Another photo of what the area looks like. Here is Flying Object Visits Region, New Mexican, April 27th, 1964. They went into great detail on this sighting report. Now, this is a top view looking down. There were 4 imprints on the ground, and they made plaster Paris molds that they were able to determine what these landing pads look like. So we want to talk about the landing pads as well. So if we talk about the insignia, this is what we've been led to believe for all these years. But if you rotate the insignia 90 degrees counterclockwise, and then you transpose this V-shaped insignia with this straight line, and then if you look on the lower left, you end up with this. So are we dealing with something man-made here? Are we dealing with a...
Yes, absolutely. ET do not use landing gear. Yeah. ET, number one, ET do not use landing gear. They don't need them. They are anti-grav. They would not put the craft on the ground. They would not even chance it unless they've crashed. So that's number one. Number two is they don't shoot flames out the bottom of them, blue flames. That sounds like man-made fuel. Okay, number two. Number three, they would not have landed like that for any length of time. That puts them in danger. So no, this didn't happen. I think that both of the ones that you're talking about, that one and the one before it, are very possible coexisting covert stuff going on with the government. And that looks like CIA to me, just saying. Okay. That's exactly correct. So No, these are ours. I want to ask you a question. You have AutoCAD'd an egg-shaped craft that was anti-grav, yes?
Mhm.
You've shown me
Many different craft, yes.
one of them in particular, you showed me, and I told you that absolutely is ET. It is not us. Okay.
Okay.
That is what they would look like. They're not perfectly round like that at all.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's the other giveaway. It's not an egg. They don't do that. So yeah, I'm telling you, that's ours, not
But these
anybody
little
else.
humanoids.
It don't matter. There are short people on this planet. Do you not know that? Let me tell you a story. Airborne, sitting on the line, watching a new crew get ready to hit the plane and go out. I'm watching my crew that I'm involved with, and I spot somebody who's only 4 foot 11 and a half inches tall with a full pack on, sitting on the it's like these weird risers that they sit them on. They're wooden, and it's to give them something to sit on without 100 pounds on their back, killing them before they get on the planes. And I'm thinking, you're not going to survive this. What the heck? And I talked to this person, and they were confident that they could do it. You have to meet all the physical requirements for, but this person wasn't even 5 feet tall. All right. Now, when he jumped, he made 4 jumps before he got injured. Somebody that light needs to wear a lot of weight to come down and shoot. Okay. So in the military, there are all types. Trust me. And if the CIA wants somebody that looks like an alien, they're going to put one there. Trust me, they can find anybody for anything. Just think,
I'm popping up a slide here because I heard that original symbol was a decoy.
That's right.
So
That's
I
right.
don't know if you're aware of that, but
Yes,
this is
I'm aware of
allegedly
that.
genuine. Okay.
Yep. So this is what we've been led to believe for over 50 years. Okay, this is the insignia that we've been led to believe. The actual insignia was an inverted V with 3 hash marks. That is the actual insignia that was seen on the craft itself. So really quickly here, one reason for this might be to vet out other witnesses. So if they said that they saw a particular symbol that wasn't correct, they would know that it was a fake. So that would be one reason why this other symbol was promoted, to smoke out other people who were lying about sightings. That might be what was going on here, So it was a verification method. These are some of the bullet items here. We'll rip through these. Object was seen within very close proximity to White Sands Missile Range. Object featured retractable landing gear. UFO featured inverted barn landing gear pads with sharp 90-degree straight corners. A mysterious metallic slam noise was heard just prior to liftoff and departure. So my question is that a door hatch closing? A second mysterious metallic slam was also just heard prior to departure. So here you have this door closing, and then you have another metallic slam. Is that where they're engaging a locking mechanism? That's my question. And I think it has merits here. Number 6, a very loud roar was heard prior to liftoff, changed in frequency from low to high. So this could be likened to that high pitch sound that we've talked about before. A blue flame was seen coming from the bottom of the craft as it lifted off the ground. Very similar to what Betty Cash reported on December 29th, 1980, Huffman, Texas. Very similar. So what we want to do now is we want to look and investigate this landing pad here. We really want to drill down deep on this landing gear pad. And you can see this is Ben Moss, the cover of his book. He does a blow up here, and you can see what this landing pad looks like. How did we get there? Page 208 of Not of This World. Here is the imprint that it made. There were 4 of these. And when you pour plaster of Paris in there, you're going to make a mold. That's how they got the configuration of the landing pad. So when you do that and you bring this into SolidWorks, you're going to end up with something that looks like this. So my question is, does this look like the landing pad of an extraterrestrial civilization, maybe 1,000, maybe 10,000 years in advance? Or does this look like a landing pad of a man-made experimental craft that went off the White Sands Missile Range just outside the boundary, 5 nautical miles to the left? They had some type of malfunction. They temporarily sat down, and you can see it looks like it was done on a milling machine. And they had a billet piece of aluminum. They put this thing on a milling machine and they just started shaving off metal. That's what it looks like. So then I did an AutoCAD drawing, and you can see the 90-degree corners. You can see all of the sharp angles. In nature, we don't have this. In nature, we don't see these sharp 90-degree corners. It looks like a piece of machine metal. That's what it looks like. So when you put this all together, again,
it doesn't do corners. Yeah, do that.
Screen a man-made technology.
The same.
So,
Craft don't have it. Yeah.
Preston and Dolly, I believe I have a world exclusive for you. I sat down and I took a look at all the dimensions, all the newspaper clippings, what Lonnie Zamora reported, other witnesses that saw the craft, because it wasn't just him. There were people that saw it prior to the landing. All of the reference material, I put all that into a SolidWorks model, and then I did a 3D printout, and this is what I came up with. Something that looks like this. By Lonnie Zamora, you know. And I donated this model to the National UFO Historical Record Center for everyone to see, you know.
So, now, any thoughts on this symbol? Did you do any research on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to decipher what that means, and I can't come up with an actual answer for it. I think it could be some kind of Atomic Energy Commission registration marking, something
AAA?
like that.
That's what it looks like to me, a AAA.
AAA, yeah, you know, yep. To this day, I don't think we have a definite answer on what this thing means.
Well,
it has something to do with Tesla.
Don't look.
Yeah, it has something to do with Tesla. Think about what Tesla's put out. Go back through all that stuff and look for it. You might find that.
Sure. Okay.
I'll
do a little blow up here. So this is the landing gear pad according to the mold that was made at the site itself of the landing itself. So here's the craft departing, and we have Lonnie's going back into his squad car here. These are some of the original hand-drawn sketches and notations. So you can hear Zamora claims he went up this hill when he saw the UFO. And then over here, you've got the National Guard Armory and where the craft came down. So these are some of the original sketches. Here's another photograph of the landing site for one of these pads. There were burn marks where the craft was. There were some embers left over. So it made a lot of physical evidence. Here's the man of the hour right here. This is our witness, primary eyewitness. This is another photograph from the original files. Again, this is the location of where the landing pad came down. Do a quick blow up. I'm not going to read all these notations. This is just to show you kind of the level of research that went into pinning all this down here. Northwestern UFO landing foot indentation, Socorro, New Mexico, 8:20 a.m., 4/29/1964. So this is like very recent when they took the photograph. Some of the investigations associated with the case itself, I'll do a couple of repeats on these. Here you've got investigators looking at the scene. Just kind of rip through some of these here. This is another
Nobody's
sketch.
wearing radiation gear at all. It's near Socorro. No. They had that kind of gear back then, and they're not worried about it. That's interesting to me. Okay, just saying.
Okay, let's continue. Now, a lot of people think that this is what Lonnie saw. San Francisco Examiner, November 20th, 1962. This bug-eyed buggy is the latest version of a vehicle to carry men on the moon's surface. The quote-unquote space bug is called a Lunar Excursion Module. Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation of Bethpage, New York, has a development contract for the craft in which it is hoped to land 2 American astronauts on the moon by 1970. This drawing of a model was released by NASA. So here's my question. You have an experienced police officer who saw a craft. Do you think he would have mistaken it for this lunar lander? No.
He's a trained observer. No.
He's a trained observer. So no, this is not what he saw. Although a lot of people think that this is what he saw. No, this is not what he saw.
Not even close.
Would you mistake this? No.
No.
Nope. He's smart enough to know. No. He's smart enough to know that this is not what he saw. This is not what he saw. Some of the original sketches associated with the sighting, I'll rip through these. This is a little bit faint, but this gives you an idea of the Again, this is a little bit higher resolution. This is top view looking down, showing you the 4 landing gear sections. Again, this is a repeat of the map. This is from one of the other sketches, more of an egg-shaped craft. Doesn't look anything like that lander at all. So
No,
I think we can rule out the lander at this point. Now, this is Astro Power Incorporated. Some people think that the insignia had to do with this: to develop advanced propulsion systems and power equipment for tomorrow's space vehicles, announcing a new corporation in the space field. So does it have something to do with this? Is this one of these corporations dealing with
close,
advanced
but it's
propulsion?
not exact.
It's close. Yeah, it's not exact, but it's kind of close. So was it a derivative of Astro Power Incorporated? I'm putting it out there. Now, let's leave Lonnie Zamora and let's go over to Maurice Mass, which I absolutely love this case. This is a great case.
I think this is ET, but let's go.
This is Maurice Mass, July 1st, 1965, Valençon, France. This is the photograph of Maurice Mass, and he was standing in a lavender field. Just minding his own business, and he heard some commotion in back of him. So he turns around, and what he sees is a 13-foot long, quote unquote, rugby football sitting on 6 spidery landing gear legs. Okay. It had a crew compartment on top with kind of a bubble canopy. And then there was an entryway hatch that was opened up. I'm going to go to the next one. This thing was 13 feet in length. So it's the size of a sedan at the time. Here is some of the original artwork associated with the case. Now, he definitely used the word spidery landing gear. This is the term that he used. Now, sitting on the ground next to the craft, picking lavender plants. So here's this interest in plants again, were 2 small humanoid-looking beings with oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose, wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit. And they were picking these lavender plants. I mean, it's unbelievable. Let's go to the next slide. Now, when Maurice Mass saw the 2 beings, one of them lifted up what looked like a dowel rod that was about 18 inches in length and probably about 1.5 inches in diameter, pointed it toward Maurice Mass, which put him in a state of stasis. It froze him. Now, while he was in that frozen state, he saw these 2 humanoid-looking beings go into the entryway hatch, and then this thing departed. In a nutshell, that is the case. So let's go to the full-color rendering and the newspaper clipping. The Boston Globe, July 8th, 1965. Flying saucer or secret plane? So they asked the question, did Maurice Mass see one of ours, or did he see an ET spacecraft? This is the original article, and I had to actually get this translated. So I have the original article and the English translation that goes into great detail on this case. So here's our final rendering of what Maurice Mass saw back in 1965 in a lavender field. So here again is this interest in our biology, in our plant life. It keeps on popping up multiple times.
Yeah, that one's probably real, and that's not landing gear. That's
Yep.
samplers. They take samples of dirt and stuff. Okay, and the central column is what it's where the battery packs come down, and there's a way to go up through it. And that dowel rod is a tool they use. It's light technology, and they put him in interdimensional stasis. It's the same type of energy beam that they use to lift you from the ground up to a craft that's way over people's heads. Okay, they could have moved him with that. And while you're in that dimensional space, it literally, I describe it, I've been in that situation where you feel frozen, but you're just not able to process the fact that you're not 3D anymore. Okay, you're out of it. And it literally shocks your brain, your physical mind, into not moving. Okay, that's what that is. So yeah, this is a real deal.
Yeah. There's a few other things about that case.
Go ahead, Preston.
One is that before this actually happened, he had been missing lavender plants for a week or two. Someone was stealing his plants.
they're taking samples. Yeah, he must have been a really good lavender farmer. He must have had excellent plants for them to do that. That's amazing.
The landing traces are
Yeah.
one of the best verified in the world.
Yeah.
Afterwards, they really studied this in depth.
Yeah. And like I said, that's not landing gear. Those are probes.
Mhm.
And they're pulling up soil samples and stuff like that in different parts of the, they need to go with those
Right.
to understand what it takes
I
to
was
keep
gonna
that
say-
lavender going. Yeah.
I'm relieved because if you said this was human, I was going to lose my mind.
No. I told you, they don't see the shape of it. That's
All right.
that's
Well,
what you
I'm happy.
probe. It's not a big deal. It's a real thing. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll continue. So we got May 16th, 1967, Falcon Lake, Canada. Stephen Mekelek was a rock hound. He was a mineral collector. What he saw were two 40-foot diameter dish-shaped crafts hovering above him. One of them departed. The other one landed about 300 feet from his location and sat there for 30 minutes before he did anything about it. He got a very good close-up look at this craft for at least a half an hour before he approached it. So here you can see he was wearing leather gloves. He had a welder's goggles on. He had
Oh, wow.
a heavy plaid shirt
Yeah.
on. He had jeans on. He was protecting himself. So when he came up to it, he said it had a low dome on top that was sheared off on top, so a square top. There was a double row of slits wrapped around the outer circumference of the lower dome. The craft had an entryway doorway that was opened up with this violet purple light coming out, and then along the vertical axis going counterclockwise was another hatch smaller than the original with what looked like 1/16 inch diameter CN-SIL drilled holes at a perfect pitch pattern. We'll talk about that. Let's move on to the next one here. So here he's looking into this hatch, which was 3 feet by 2 feet. The exhaust vent section left of this view was 6 inches by 8 inches. Now, he heard laughter and in an unintelligible voice coming from the interior of the craft, and he spoke in multiple different languages to try to raise someone inside there, and he failed to do it. So he could not establish contact with the occupants. Let's go to the next slide. So here is Stephen looking inside the craft. Very good close-up of the craft itself. Now, as this thing rotated and then started departing, there was a hot exhaust that came from this exhaust vent that burned him. And the whole pitch pattern of this vent matched the burn marks on his chest that continually appeared and disappeared throughout his entire life until he died a few years ago. So this is something that constantly came back multiple times. I'm going to go on to the next one here. This is a blow up showing you what this looks like. This whole pitch pattern matched perfectly the burn marks on his chest here. Here's some of the original artwork that shows you the welder's mask that he had and these heavy leather gloves he was wearing as well. Here's the pitch pattern of the burn marks. There were chips that were discovered. And then Antonio Huneeus, my good friend Antonio Huneeus, got a photograph from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And I'm going to move on to the next slide. And you can see where the craft came down. These are original pictures I scanned from the file folder that had a lot of the detailed information and research associated with the case itself. So this shows you the surroundings. So it's a highly wooded area. This is where the craft came down. You can see that there's a difference between this outside section with the, you could call it moss and foliage, rather than the inside of the circle. Here's the photograph that Antonio gave to me. And this is an actual piece of physical evidence here. Hasn't been seen very much. You can definitely see this circular mark where the craft came down. This is from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And, you know, not that I want to show people photographs of bellies of guys. That's not what we're doing here. But this is a photograph of Stephen with the burn marks. So I think
that's
it's
years
important
later, obviously, because the other ones show them fresh and perfect, all the holes.
Yeah, I think the craft was in trouble. And if it was venting something, it was on purpose. They don't generally vent all the time. It's not how they operate, venting all the time. So they may have been venting something they had to vent.
Do you think this was ET? Because I was always wondering that this possibly was not.
No, I think because of the way the slits around the top, those are that they open up to vent air through the craft. In other words, when they're on the ground, they're not running all their systems, especially if it's down for a reason, and they'll vent air through it. And when you open the sides of the door and you see the vents going this way, this entire skin of an ET craft has vents going all the way through it that most people don't know exist. Okay, and it's to circulate. Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow.
So yeah, I think this one's real. I think he got burned by some sort of hot plasma.
He was a miner, and this is an area that was metal rich, which could be a draw here.
He also said that when he got done with this sighting, weeks afterward, his whole body had a particular odor. And it says here, this is Edmonton Journal, May 24th, 1967. Foul smell persists. UFO sighter suffers chest burn. And he talked about how his body never really smelled the same afterwards. So there was some type of effect into his pores of his skin here.
He was examined by a bunch of doctors. Absolutely radiation poisoning. His blood lymphocyte level dropped dramatically. All the symptoms.
This is the real deal. The fact that there were no landing gear, that it went flat down. I told you, they will not land on the ground unless something is wrong. Okay. But there's no gear. They will go and they'll put it down. This is considered a crash to them. All right. They had issues and they were fixing it. And the fact that they had the slits going around the top, any craft can open up air for itself to let it in. They breathe our air for a certain amount of time. And I'm pretty sure this is a real one. And I feel bad for him that he got burned. Yeah.
Wodonga, Australia, 1967. 2 taller humanoid-looking beings associated with the craft. We've got some very minute details, but the bottom line is to get these into a PowerPoint to preserve our history in a chronological order. That's the goal of this presentation here. And this is an ongoing research effort. I'm going to put all these cases in there. This is going to be the mother of all UFO PowerPoint presentations, the UFO Magical Mystery Tour. I'm going to go from the ancient Egyptians up to 2025. And this is going to be about 1,500 slides. That's the goal of this presentation here. So what kind of unusual UFOs are being seen in Oslo, Norway? That's the question, okay? Let's go to the map. This is where the thing was reported. So not too far from Oslo, Norway. What are they seeing? These kind of craft. So are these man-made? Are these defense contractor back in 1968? I mean, it doesn't look man-made, right? These are very strange configurations. So let's go here. Place and time, Oslo, 26 December, 1968. One object moved with dancing motion and change shape. Okay, so now we've got things that are morphing into different configurations. Was seen through glasses 8x40 binoculars. First grumbling sound was heard. Then sharp flashes of light was seen, and cigar-shaped object 4 to 5 meters long ascended, stopped, and disappeared. Seemed to consist of shiny rods and 5 luminous spheres. Interesting configurations. Interesting configurations. Doesn't
putting it lightly. There
I have no damn clue. I've never seen anything like that.
There you go. Yeah. That's why we're here. Let's go on to the next one. Another one, 1969, another craft seen with a coronal discharge of green light. That's something we reported. Here's a cigar-shaped craft with this welder's torch light on the bottom. One object size 25 to 30 meters was seen at a distance of 40 to 50 meters. The object traveled at a speed of 10 to 15 kilometers per hour and was aluminum colored. That's way too slow for an aircraft. So we're not talking about general aircraft here.
Right. It would be any craft. Yeah, type of aircraft. Yeah, but it's got a tailpipe.
Yep. Something else. Here's another one. One object traveled over houses and an arch of some type of hill. It was seen at a distance of 40 to 50 meters and for 15 seconds. Object measured about 7 meters across and was massive. Blue, white, green color shades was seen as flames. Another interesting configuration. Place and time, November 1957. So I think that's an interesting case. Let's go on. Platteville, Illinois, January 25th, 1969. So you've got Naperville, you've got Aurora. Where I've got this star is where this happened. Again, Platteville, Illinois, January 25th, 1969. And in quotes below, in parentheses, I've got very good CE2 case, and I think this is a great CE2 case. I want to go over this here. This is the map and front page of the sighting report of where all this went down. So let's go to the next slide. So you've got the map of where this took place, and this is on Church Road, which is gravel, and Canton Farm Road is up on the upper section, Platteville, Illinois. This is January 25th, 1969. So the wife is driving the car. The husband is asleep on the passenger side, and she's driving northbound on this road. And all of a sudden, you can see X marks the spot. A 30-foot tall cone-shaped UFO hovers in front of the vehicle. It lifts the front two tires of the vehicle off the ground by 3 feet, and the husband is still asleep. Let me go to the next slide here. This shows you the map of where all this went down. And you can see flying ice cream cones and teepees. Yes, we've got reports of flying ice cream cones. That's what we're talking about here. That's exactly what this craft looks like. Here is the original sketch from the eyewitness report. The outer portion of this thing, again, this thing is 30 feet tall. It's a cone-shaped UFO. It has what look like roofing panels on the top, like a roofer would do on some type of a roofing job. That's what it looked like. One of these panels was open, and then on the bottom of the craft, there was an I-beam with a large white colored light shining down below. So this is the original sketch from the witness. Here's my cleaned up AutoCAD drawing that gives you an idea of what this craft looked like. 30 feet tall, 10 feet in diameter with an I-beam and a white colored light at the bottom. Here is the first pass rendering of what the craft looks like. They were driving a 1966 Chrysler Imperial. So you can see how heavy this vehicle is. This is not a light vehicle. This is a heavy vehicle. And it lifted the front two tires off the ground by 3 feet. So here is Rudy's drawing. This gives you an idea of what the sighting looked like. They described it in absolute minute detail. They got a real good look at the bottom of the craft. Here's our full color rendering. This gives you an idea of what this may have looked like. And I want to give credit to Joel Payne for his work on that particular case. Jail and Hynek investigated this case. So it was put into the QFOS archives. That some of that information was also put into the APRO archives as well. Here are Fate Magazine 1977. They had a UFO convention. This was talked about, so I want to give credit to the researchers involved in that particular case. Here's some of the other sketches that had to do with other different type of large, this is 100 feet, 50 feet across for this, call it a cone-shaped ice cream cake UFO being seen by multiple witnesses. This is a little bit more of a cleaned up sketch and scan from the original drawing. I think we got time for one more here. South Vietnam, January, February 1969. At least 3 eyewitnesses saw a UFO from Vietnam area. South Vietnam, this is the original front page report. So we've got multiple witnesses. They're laying on the ground. One of them saw this UFO go right over their heads, and he drew a sketch of what the craft looked like. And this is his original sketch. He says, outline of shutters, windows was visible, although entire ship, including shutters, were a gray, dull metallic color. No lights were visible or protrusions, no markings of any kind. As much as I can recall, the only detail visible on the craft was the outline of the shutters. No visible vapor, only a whooshing air sound. So here's this whooshing sound again that we've heard about. Here is my AutoCAD drawing here. This gives you an idea of what the craft looks like according to the witness. 9.5 feet in diameter, 5 feet tall. Let's go to the full color rendering. Something like this was seen South Vietnam, 1969 timeline here. Now, one more. Doreen Kendall was a nurse. She was at the British Columbia, Canada Hospital. And this is January 1st, 1970. She was on the 3rd floor making her rounds. She noticed that one of her patients was getting restless. So she went over to open up the blinds, and when she looked out the window, she saw a 50-foot diameter dish-shaped craft hovering directly out the window. It was tipped forward at a 15-degree angle. It had a bubble transparent canopy. There were 2, what she called very nice-looking physique men wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit. It was black in color. It covered their entire bodies with the exclusion of their wrists and their faces. You go to the next slide here. Here she is looking outside the window. Now, there were 2 bar stools inside this bubble transparent dome. Standing next to the bar stools were these 2 beings. They were standing behind a display panel that had control buttons, switches, dials, and levers. Now, when the one at the left saw he was being watched by the nurse, he tapped the shoulder of the one on the right, and this guy pulled this lever back and forth 2 times, and this craft departed at a slow rate of speed. Let me go to the next slide. This gives you an idea of what Doreen Kendall saw January 1st, 1970. Here's the technical drawing that shows you the tip-down angle and where she was when she saw this back in 1970. So here's my version that shows you the tip-down angle and basically how close she was to seeing the craft itself. Here's the drawing that came with the report. And I think we've got another exclusive here. This is her original sketch and her notations.
Oh, wow.
She says, and this is Doreen Kendall, signed by Doreen Kendall. The inside as tipped toward me and looking into same. The instrument panel was larger than shown as the first man was at the controls, consisted of large and small circles, brilliantly lit up instrument panel. So this is her original sketch. Why would a nurse lie to us about this? No, she's a credible witness. She's a credible witness. Let me go to the next slide here. So I got another world exclusive as we got time is running out here. And we'll go to the color marker drawing, which I don't think has been seen for 50 years. And so we have Doreen looking out. Let me blow this up a little bit here. And we'll do a full color rendering. Just looking out the 3rd floor window of the hospital ward here. And this is a blow up from the color marker, color pencil drawing. And then this is Rudy's drawing showing you the 2 men wearing the black one-piece tight-fitting flight suits. We've got the historically correct bar stool seats. And then this panel with what she said were buttons and switches and display screens within the bubble transparent canopy. So I really wanted to highlight this case from January 1st, 1970.
Yeah, it's ours. That is 90.
I would tend to agree. I would tend to agree.
Yeah. They don't have bells and buttons and stuff on the inside, and they don't fly with clear canopies at all.
If we already had this technology prior to July 20th, 1969, so this is 1970, but it was already flying. So that begs the question, what was Apollo all about? Why did the Challenger astronauts die on January 20th, 1986, when we already had this technology? They were never briefed on this technology. That's my question.
Yeah.
Want an answer? It's not hard to figure out. I mean, you can infer a lot of stuff in this if you want to, but point blank is they were trying to prove certain things. The moon was important because they needed to see certain signs on the moon that they were looking for because they needed to know if our sun micronova or not.
Why not just take one of these up there,
Because those would not fly. They were not capable of making an interstellar, inner space flight. They would have not made the trip. They're not good enough to do that. You got remember it has to be pressurized. They have to have food. They have to have water. They have to have a place to sleep. Or
these are limited to the planet, is what you're saying.
They're limited, correct. And the reason that you don't know about this stuff, or they wouldn't explain it to you, is they were trying to back engineer ET stuff. Now you're talking about cavemen with technology that they don't understand, okay? And they're working it from their end of the ground up, and they're having to develop technology just to reproduce that technology from the 1950s forward. So you're going to see all kinds of weird, interesting things that they've done. Would never, ever occur to anybody doing this because they don't want you to know they're doing it. So yeah, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. And they still don't have it right. They're getting closer, but they don't have it right yet. Still, not at all.
Well, I wish we had more time, but we are actually edging towards the end here.
Okay. That's okay. But so I really just wanted to show you kind of a brief overview of some of the mission critical cases within the APRO files by chronological order by date And, there's a lot more to this. I'm going to be adding to this more full color renderings to preserve an important part of our national history. That's the goal in all of this.
Cool. So here's a question from Polly, and thank you, Polly, for the donation. Seems to be a huge gap between all the evidence and where disclosure stands. Did the last hearing move the needle? Where and how? Thank you.
Yeah, very good question. Short answer, no, I don't think so. We haven't seen any biologics. We haven't seen any craft. We haven't seen any hardware. We haven't seen any debris. We haven't seen any gun camera footage. We talked about the Gordon Cooper intercept. Where's the gun camera footage? And we talked about the 1957 landing, which was all recorded on motion picture film reel. Where is this evidence? They have it. They already admitted they have it. Where is this evidence? We need that evidence to move this needle forward.
All right. Dolly, do ET craft have ladders, ramps to get in and out?
No, they do not.
There's quite a few reports of it.
I know. People, when you're in a situation where everything is not normal to you, and you're going through something that is off the charts, you will infer things in your mind. Your mind will paradolize almost anything, including a ramp.
Freddie and Barney Hill pretty clearly described a ramp.
I know that, and like I said, fear. Freaking out can make you see and feel things. Your brain is overlaying what it understands against what is not
Maybe
understandable.
They were seeing something that was actually light that was pulling them on board, because that also
exactly. That's exactly correct.
All right.
On here.
Let me see. I think there was one other. We didn't get a whole lot of questions. Please, Michael, come back. Oh, here's from Janie Mashburn. Did National Geographic ever publish stories about UFOs? I don't.
That's a good one.
I'm not aware of doing any deep dives. No,
I don't know.
I don't think so either. Not time. Nobody.
If you have them, Janie, check them out.
Yeah. Let us know. Let Michael know. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that was amazing. So, at this point, what is your consensus that we have had this technology since the 30s?
My consensus is that the breakthroughs in gravity research were made at the latest October 1957. However, personally, I believe it predates that, because we've got the Snake River Canyon case of 1947, where multiple eyewitnesses saw Abraham Lincoln's top hat with a pod on either side, an atomic discharge going right through Snake River Canyon at over 1,000 miles an hour back in 1947. So I personally believe the breakthrough was made prior to 1957. And yes, we do have the technology, and all of the quote unquote space programs using liquid and solid rockets are nothing more than window dressing. That's my assessment based on the eyewitness testimony.
Agree.
Yep. All right. Here's a question you can probably answer, or maybe not, but quickly. When will Michael's project be finished?
It's ongoing. I'm going to go through every case that I was able to scan in, do a deep dive, and get a very good line drawing and full color rendering of each one. So this is an ongoing project for sure. Yep.
Well, that's very cool. That's absolutely awesome information. You're the man. Wow. Yeah. Fantastic. I hope you come back and tell us more.
No problem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We'll do that.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to close it down. I hate to do it, but we are basically on our last 3 minutes here. I do want to give a shout out to all you folks. Thank you for watching. We truly appreciate it. The donations help us so much. Bob, namaste.
It costs money to be in a network. We actually spend money here to get on the air very much.
Thank you, Star Orchid and Roll. You guys really delivered today, Polly. Amazing. So, yeah, thank you all. We love you very much. We love you, Michael. Please come back. We can't wait.
Great. We're going to schedule after the show. Just stay on for a few minutes.
Okay. No problem. No problem.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Light Gate on the last Monday in September. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 105.3.7 and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Facebook, we're on Roku, we're on Rumble, and we're on YouTube. We love you all very much. Please take care of yourselves and have a wonderful week. We wish you well. Think about us. We were going to Shag Harbor on Wednesday and won't be back until next Tuesday, I think. So we love you and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.